What is up, guys and gals? Welcome to Weekly Indie Newcomer, the weekend series where you and I take a look at a game that's been bouncing around my brain over the course of the last week. This week, we're looking at Age of Gladiators, a game in which you will manage a stable of gladiators throughout their careers and help them fight their way to Rome to the Colosseum to become the ultimate rock star of murder. I'm a sucker for gladiator stuff. I love the first season of Spartacus. I really like the movie Gladiator. One of my favorite games of all time is called Colosseum Road to Freedom. It's on the PlayStation 2. Flawed little title, but such a gem, and I'm always amazed nobody's ever made that game ever again because it was such a good idea. It was such an amazing idea. This game very much follows suit there. It's a very simple little game. You can pick up and play it very quickly. It's only got one save slot, so that would be my first thing that I point out. If you're the kind of person that's here through search and you don't know me or what I do here on YouTube anyways, and you just want to know if the game is good, I got an annotation for you right now so that you can jump to the end of the video and hear my comments about it. But normally these impression videos, I do about 25 minutes of the game so you can see what it's like, and then I give you my thoughts at the end. So let's start it on up. Age of Gladiators, we got to pick a portrait. I like this guy right here. He's like, are you sure this ice cream isn't marked down? Can you check the back for me? That's what he's saying on his face right there. Dim retail problems. We got to choose an origin. So we can be a merchant, which gives us a ton of extra money. Not a bad idea if you're new to the game. That's probably the most newbie-friendly one right there. Ex-Gladiator makes your guys train faster. Not really worth it. Not really worth it. You're not going to level up a lot from training until the point where training doesn't really matter anyways. Ex-Scout. Perfect fighter evaluation. So you scout for your fighters. This game is not historically accurate, and if it is historically accurate, it's drawing inspiration from the end of the Colosseum period, where people smell riches in the arena, and so they're actually like selling themselves to gladiator stables to fight and see if they can become super de-duper famous. The music doesn't loop, by the way. It's a thing that I've noticed. I've re-recorded this like 5 times trying to get through the beginning, and it gets all quiet and awkward in here. So you actually have to hire your gladiators in this game. I think it's a balancing mechanism. I think traditionally gladiators were usually slaves or people that were unfit for other work. However, in this game, you buy them. And so scouting makes it so that you can scout for gladiators better. Doctor, 50% injury recovery and no sickness. That's actually pretty solid. If you've played the game, the sickness crops up a lot. Your guys constantly have like the flu or like diarrhea or some other random affliction, and when they have that, their HP is reduced by like 20% when they go into a fight if you force them to fight sick. I force them to fight sick because HP, while an important stat, is not the end-all, be-all, and you could definitely defeat somebody with way better stats than you if you have them properly equipped and trained. However, there it is. Showman, this is the one that I normally go with. You get 100% more fame from every fight. You get plus minus 50% reputation for good and for bad. So what that means, if you do a good thing, you get more reputation. Do a bad thing, you get less reputation. Meaning the punishments and the rewards are higher depending on what you decide to do. You get higher purses, which is really good because money can be incredibly tight in this game in the beginning. And then you get more fight scheduling, which is super important because your fights are on a monthly schedule. And if you don't get any fights in 1 month, every day in the first arena, I'll give you an example, every day it generates a fight randomly for you. And so at the beginning of the game, you have a 50% chance to get booked on any given day of the month. The second arena, you have a 30% chance to get booked on any day of the month. And then it keeps going down and down and down. And the way you offset that is because you have a promotional budget. And so you increase your promotional budget, and it makes people want to hire gladiators more and more and more. So anyways, this will help take the edge off of that. This costs like 80,000 denarii. Whenever you actually purchase a 20% fight scheduling increase. And so this basically just gives you free money to handle your business. Negotiator, I've actually never played with. It seems like it'd be pretty good. It's not because it's not bad, it's just because this one's better. But it makes fighters cheaper, it makes your fighters way cheaper to stable, and then it gives you a morale bonus. This is probably a pretty good one. I haven't had the time to play with it yet. I think I've got about 9 hours played in game right now, and I've played with everything except for that one. You've got options down here with Iron Man. You get to choose how strong you want the economy to be. I usually go with average just because this is kind of the easy mode, this is the hard mode, and this is kind of as intended. And then you can add and remove features as you like from the game. So if you find you don't like the side quest, get rid of it. If you find you don't like player perks, get rid of it. If you don't like fighter transactions, doesn't matter. I think the fighter transactions make the game take like 10 times as long because there's other people doing the same job that you're doing. I'm managing a stable of gladiators. The goal is to put all of your competition out of business. And so the other people that you're competing against will also buy gladiators off the same list that you do. This right here will simplify the game and make it take a lot less time. It won't make it easier. They'll still start with leveled badass gladiators, but it will make the game not drag quite so much in the back quarter because at about 60% of the way through the game, it starts to get really, really grindy as you just fight over and over and over again. And people have so much money that they can hire like dozens of gladiators a week, and so it can be a little bit iffy. Let's go ahead and take Showman. I do think that's by far the best one. Doctor's pretty good too, but that's not going to matter once you're a little bit into the game and you got so many doctors working for you that you don't need to worry about sickness anyways. Cool. So here we are. They're going to talk to us. This is basically, you want to check your mail when you first start. I'm going to treat this like a tutorial while I'm here too, just so people playing the game can learn how to play. You get mail. You should check your mail pretty frequently because that's where you're going to get your correspondence and all of your tutorials through. If you've never played the game before, read your mail. Every day it will send you mail telling you what you did wrong. And yes, you're going to fail at this game the first couple times that you play. Absolutely. There's no way you're going to make it through this like on your first playthrough without getting yourself into trouble. It looks like we have sound right now. It's just being quiet though. Let's see here. We got a fight scheduled tomorrow. However, we don't have... There's a bunch of tabs down here. We've got the stable. We've got the staff. We've got recruit. We've got market. And we've got office. The stable is all of our fighters through here. This is where you'll do your management. You can name them. You can do all that fun stuff. You also need to upgrade your stable from time to time to make your fighters happier so they're not sleeping on the ground and, you know, not having beds and stuff like that, living a squalid existence. And you have to repair the stable every now and again because it gets worn down as people train there. Staffing. We need to hire ourselves scouts, doctors, blacksmiths, and trainers. Personally, I would probably hire a really good scout at the beginning. Evaluation is how well he can identify their stats. Network is how many people he pulls per 2 weeks for you to hire. And so the higher the network, the more gladiators you can potentially see in the hiring pool. And then the higher his evaluation, the more accurate his stats will be when he appraises them for you. And so I would probably go in on, well, we're kind of broke right now. I'd probably go in on this guy, though. He's really the only option. Next, we need trainers. Trainers are the guys that make sure you earn XP when you win fights and also on your off days when you're training. My suggestion would be to take somebody with a decent training level but not really a good coaching level because coaching affects how much XP you get after a fight. So if you win a fight, this is like a little flat multiplier to help you get more XP. Training affects your daily XP allotment, and so training is more important in the beginning. Coaching's good, don't get me wrong. It's just we're trying to skimp costs right now because it's going to be very, very... We're going to have to tighten our belts a bit. We're definitely have to tighten our belts a bit at the beginning of the game. It's very easy for something to go catastrophically wrong. My suggestion here would be to hire a good doctor. If you don't hire a good doctor, injury handles their injuries after combat. Sickness gives you a flatline resistance versus your guys getting sick every day, and then also helps them get better faster, I think. I've noticed that at a certain point in the game where I have like 7 doctors hired, my guys no longer get sick. I don't know if that's due to their stats or if it's due to like the doctors I'm hiring. It doesn't really say. You can mouse over anything you want in this game, and I think that's a feature that's very welcome. If you don't like tutorials like me, if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to play tutorials, I love games where they give you tooltips where you can mouse over everything and it'll tell you what it is, because then you can kind of create your own tutorial. I hate games that don't include that. And so, well, I don't hate them, I guess. I don't like it when games force me to play their boring little tutorial when they could just give me mouse over menus and I could just look at things and be like, okay, that does that, and then move along my merry way. I'm going to hire this guy, Ahala. Ahala, you want to be my doctor? You can be my proctor. We got to get a trainer. Oh, we already got a trainer. So the blacksmith. The blacksmith does exactly what he sounds like. He provides, in the market right here, you'll have weapons and armor. You have to buy weapons from him for whatever reason, but you hire him and he controls every 10 days. He'll give you another batch of weaponry, and the batch of weaponry that he sends over will be better or worse based on his stats. So just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and we've got our staff here. I need to hire, we've got Quadratus. I heard he's pretty good at formulas. The best weapons guy we have. We're not going to be able to wear armor for a really, really long time. So my suggestion to you is to find somebody who's got like 500 weapons and like 50 armor at the beginning of the game and just cut costs that way. We'll take, what was his name? That guy's name was Proculus. And so hopefully he'll put some lovely little procs on our weapons since that is his name. We've got our staff hired. You don't have to do this like I do this. You can see all the bonuses you're getting right here on this side. Now we need to recruit gladiators. In the beginning of the game, I prefer, very much actually, to go for dexterity. This guy is a fantastic fighter. The problem with him is that he's 41 years old, which means he's going to start barking up the tree to retire pretty soon. His health is kind of bad as well. His health is not amazing. The first stat that I look at with any new hire at the beginning of the game is dexterity. The stats are like this. Strength is how hard you hit. Stamina, it gives you energy while you fight. Agility affects your ability to dodge. Reflex is your ability to parry. Dexterity is your ability to hit. And intellect, and it governs how much XP you get from random activities. Health is self-explanatory. Young fighters tend to have worse stats. Older fighters tend to have better stats. That's not like a hard rule. It's just kind of like a soft thing that I've noticed along the way. This guy is a really fantastic fighter, and so I'm going to take him. You want to focus on dexterity in the beginning of the game because it's really no fun watching your character sit there and miss for 39 rounds while you wait for it to be over. The game, you can auto-resolve the combat. I always auto-resolve the combat, and I'll talk to you why I do that pretty soon. Once we get to our first combat, I'll talk about it a little bit. We want to go easy on our cash right now. Aulus, he's 15 years old and he's fighting in the arena. That is crazy. That is absolutely wild, but he's a pretty good fighter too. I'll take him. All right, so we've hired our first 2 gladiators. We don't want to overdo it because we can very easily spend all of our money. By the time they get here, we'll have a mild fight, which I think will be okay. They might get here on this day. If they get here on this day, that'll be a lot better. What we want to do now is we want to take a look at their stats and their skills. 42 dexterity is going to give him a pretty solid chance of whipping somebody's ass in the beginning of the game. So that's Pulcher. He's 5'0". He's a little guy. And then he's 170 pounds, so he's a buff little guy. A real buff little guy. He's ripped. This guy's 5 foot. Man, we're running the shorty squad right here. That's cool. That's whatever. As long as they hold it down and they win fights, I don't care. This guy uses the Sika as his weapon specialty. You always want to check their weapon specialty. Don't send them into combat without the weapon they're good at. A Sika is kind of like a long curved blade that goes backwards, and you can flip it whichever direction you want, either to slash somebody if the curve is in the front, or if the curve is in the back, you can use it to reach over somebody's shield and stab them in the shoulder. Over on this side, he's got an Asta. An Asta is a spear of some kind, as I recall. Yeah. I think a Lancea is a 3-pronged spear. It's basically a trident. I think that, no, that's a Fascina. A Lancea, I think, is like a really, really big pilum. Like, if you know what a pilum is. It's kind of like a pilum that's not meant for throwing. And then I think an Asta is like a boar spear. It's got like a big head on it. It's kind of like a Gaelic or Gaul-looking spear. We need an Asta, and we've only got this one right here. It's overpriced. It doesn't have very good damage. I don't know, the pricing seems kind of random. I don't really know, like, you find inferior weapons with way higher prices for some reason. I don't really know how that all goes down. We're going to go ahead and buy the Asta, and the other person needed a... What did the other person... Oh, he needed a Sika. Man, that's expensive. All right. Whew, so we got... Man, we just spent a lot of money. We're a little bit broke right now. Let's give you the Sika. Down here, you've got the weapon's damage. And you've got the weapon's condition. The bonus thing doesn't appear to work yet. I would like to see in parentheses what the bonus is you're getting with your weapon. It looks like it adjusts just as attack for right now, and that's straight additive. But I'd like to know what the bonus affects. It says you get a bonus if you use their specialty weapon, but it says it adds full damage to the attack or something like that. I don't know. All right, so we're in here. I mean, we got guys with okay stats. Let's go ahead and bypass a couple of days. We are all ready to haul, so let's jump on in here. We got guys in transit to the stables. We can't really do anything right now, but we've got a very well-booked first month. So there it is. Pulcher and Aulus have arrived, and we got a fight scheduled today on March 4th. The hype is low. So the hype is basically an internal modifier that either nerfs or buffs the enemy's fighters. So if you're on a massive one right here, massive, you know the enemy is going to be fighting at their full capacity, like 100% of their stats, 100% of everything. On top of that, the guy that you're, like the other manager that's running his team, he's going to put in his strongest guys who are going to be fighting at their 100% capacity. If you fight his strongest guy during a mild promotional fight, chances are he's just not going to do quite so well. And I've seen matchups with like level 2s, with like level 22s, and the level 2 will come out on top just based on the way the modifier works. It's an odd system, and it's not really explained a whole lot. I do think there's little ways that they could iron that over and make it run a little bit smoother. As far as I know, this is a very small development team, though. Let's enter. So we've got a couple of people we got to fight with. We've got Quadratus, who apparently works for us, and on the weekends he moonlights fighting us with his fighters as well. We've got Proculus, who appears to work for us as well, and is also in the arena. We've got Bestia. You can look down here at their average level. I would suggest that you always work from left to right. There are some minor caveats in that suggestion, where sometimes you want to fight this guy and sometimes you want to fight this guy, but mostly you want to start with the left and then you want to go to the right. There's 967 people coming to the arena to see us fight today. The purse is 5,400 gold, or denarii. We're going to be up against Quadratus, and we've got to choose who we want to fight. I think the smart choice would be Aulus. His dexterity is a little lower, but his health is a little higher. And with low-level characters, I like them to have dexterity, but I very much like them to have health as well. You need them. This is kind of like XCOM, where you need them to get a couple fights under their belt. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to consistently kill anybody. The characters start to be good around level 3 or 4. That's when they really start to show their true colors and start whooping the ass off everybody. The problem you run into is they have to survive that long, and sometimes they just catch a blade to the side of the head. The combat is very random. It has a lot in common with Punch Club, and so sometimes you lose even though you've got twice the stats of the other guy. It is what it is. Sometimes there's those upsetting fights that you just lose. Aulus is in. The betting is favoring Aulus 3-1. That bet right there, if you wanted a quick and dirty rule for how this works, I'm going to bet on Alice. If you bet against your own guy, he finds out about it, and it nerfs his morale. You can get perks as a promoter to eliminate that so that he no longer finds out about it. He's got a greed level that is low. Every character has a greed level. That's how much they want to get paid for fighting. And you have to adjust this to determine how much morale they'll have, essentially. You can give them, like, the entire purse for, like, a huge morale boost if you really, really need to keep them from running away in the middle of the night or to keep them from assaulting the guards. Or you can just leave it where it is. He's got low greed, so I'm going to leave it where it's at. As a quick and dirty rule for betting, if you bet on your guy, the number in the front, you divide by that. So if you bet 500, you'll probably get like 150 to 200 denarii out if he wins. Second number, so if it's 1 to 3, you would multiply by that. And so you would actually get 1,000 out by betting. I'm going to leave it where it's at for right now because we got a fight to go in on. Don't bet on people that aren't on your team until you at least have that perk. It does really, really hurt your morale. And not just his morale. When he gets back home, he talks to the other gladiators, and they found out about it too, and it's a mess. This guy is definitely going to die. You can take a look at the stat matchup right here, and then you kick off the fight, and that's it. It will go through just rounds, basically. It sets up turns at the beginning where everybody gets their stamina back, and then they just attack each other over and over and over again. If you wanted to do it at a lower speed, you can go ahead and do that. It looks like we're going to flawlessly defeat this guy, and so there's the kill. He's been taken out. This was the first big disappointment for me with this game. I really don't think the combat... I think the combat is the biggest detractor from the game right now. I think that the game should have some kind of graphical representation of what's going on in the battle. This right here is actually one of the main reasons why I would actually score it a little bit lower, is because the game does so well with all the menus and everything, and then when you get into a fight, you just kind of get denied the glory of seeing your guys fight. And after playing games like Punch Club, where they see you like fight each other, and well, you get to see your fighters fight at the bare minimum, even in Punch Club where you're watching the fights can be a little bit boring. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said I always auto-resolve the combats, because there's not really any point watching them. The fights are just attack, miss, hit, 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 miss, hit. You know, it just goes back and forth. There's no, like, Owlus strikes with his right arm at the left leg or anything like that. There's no description. There's no fluff here. It's just all grind. It's all crunch. And so I tend to just skip this. So from here forward, I'm just going to skip the fights because they're not really... I just wanted to show you what the fight was in the first place so that I could make my point. I will say that's probably one of the lamest things about the game. It's one of the things that I don't like very much, but other than that, I like the game a lot. So the crowd is bloodthirsty. At the end of every fight, the fighter that wins gets the money, and then he brings it back to you. He becomes fatigued at the beginning of the game. That's kind of something you got to learn to deal with. You can mitigate it for right now. I'm sorry, you can't mitigate it right now, but you can mitigate it later. In like a month or so, we'll be able to get rid of that, and it'll make our lives easier. After every fight, your fighter will be fatigued for a minimum of 7 to 10 days. I don't like that mechanic very much. I think it could probably be reduced to 3 or 4 days and it'd be perfectly fine. But it taking 10 days for somebody to recover from a fight where they took no damage seems like a bit much to me. And you can actually look at his wounds and stuff after the combat. It'll tell you right here if he has new wounds. And he killed this guy flawlessly. There's no reason for him to be fatigued. It's one of those little things I disagree with, but you can take a perk as a promoter that'll make it so your fighters no longer get fatigued. So it's a thing that I only complain about for like the first 30 days of gameplay, and then after that it's gone and you have to worry about it anymore. Structus is super dead. The fighter that loses, the crowd gets to vote on whether or not they want to kill him. At that point, it comes down to his fame level versus his flair. And so he's got his fame level, he's a newcomer, doesn't really matter. If your fighter is like 21-0, like he's won so many fights, the crowd will usually give him a pass a couple times because he's had such like a super awesome career in entertaining the crowd. But if not, they've got another stat called Flair, which is right inside of here. When you level up your fighters, you go to the expertise menu. There's Flair. You can increase it by 20%. That's how good of a showman he is and how much the crowd loves him when he's in the arena. And there are characters who are terrible fighters, but everybody loves them because they got that stat maxed out, and they're basically unkillable unless you catch a death blow in the middle of combat, which can happen, by the way. You can catch a death blow and instantly die in combat. It's terrifying. Next fight for tomorrow is going to be a mild fight. If you fight a guy while he's got fatigue, it lowers a bunch of his stats, I think. I think his stats are pretty heavy. It might be his damage, actually, that gets nerfed. I can't remember. Something gets nerfed when you've got fatigue, and it might actually tell you. It temporarily reduces his attributes. So don't let guys fight when they're fatigued. You can get away with letting guys fight when they're sick, but fatigue in general is a bad idea unless you really need the money, like right now. Their morale is good. You can mouse over this. 100 is content. I think around 60 or 70 is when they start to get a little bit irritated with you. The lower their morale gets, the more likely they are to run off in the middle of the night and abandon you. So if you want to keep your friends forever and hug them and force them to fight naked for your entertainment, make sure that you're paying them well enough and that they stay happy. It maxes out at 200 where they're just like, I think it says exhilarated is what they call it. We got mail right here. Sometimes people talk shit. Yeah, Quadratus. Don't be too proud of your victory. I will exact revenge upon you and your pathetic fighters soon enough. And then Ave Lanista, your first win was most impressive. May you and your family of gladiators enjoy the taste of many more victories. Signed, Quintus Pompeius Rufus, Prefectus Egypti. So actually, I think that's where we're at right now. If you look at the map, yeah. It looks like we're fighting somewhere around North Africa anyways. We've got a mile fight today. Sorry, my geography is terrible. I don't even know what else to tell you about it. I could try, but yeah, we didn't have geography classes when I was in school. Like, seriously, I never took a geography class once. Like, all the way from elementary school through high school. We don't have those, or we didn't have those where I live. I don't know if that's how it was for everybody else, but we didn't. So that has left me poorly equipped for, like, when people are like, I bet you can't even find my country on a map. And I'd be like, I bet you're correct. I'm ignorant as hell. At least I can admit it, though. Pulcher. He's got the Sika. We're going to have to put him in. He's got really good dexterity, though, so I think he'll be all right. Pulcher is going up against, he's got 2-1. I always bet everything. It's the best way. Well, it might be a bad idea here. It's going to divide by 2, though, but we need the extra purse to keep ourselves up and running. I bet no matter what. I always had money problems playing this game until I started betting. And then once I started betting every single battle, I started having just flush with cash. This right here will give us about a 5,000 purse. That'll make it up to about a 10,000 win bonus. Which, if I bumped it all the way up to there, we'd be getting about 6.5, but if we lose, we've only got 2-1 odds. This is a rough synopsis of how well the betting is going, because people know their stats and they want to see him fight. Let's find out. Is Drusus good? Drusus is alright. Drusus might be a problem. His dexterity is high enough to where I'm worried about it, but our reflexes are pretty good too, so I think we'll be able to take him. We're going to fight. I'm going to skip it, because nothing really happens there. We won! However, he has gained grievous injuries, so unfortunately, he's got serious injuries right now. It's going to cost us a lot of money to get those fixed. An epic and evenly matched battle. We have a winner. We ended up winning 24,000 denarii from that. That's good because it'll keep our company afloat for a while our gladiators recover. You're not going to be able to fight like every single day when you first start this game. It's just not something you're going to be able to do. Later on, we'll be able to fight non-stop, like back to back to back to back, because we can get rid of fatigue and we can get rid of injuries and stuff faster. The crowd is impressed by the losing fighter's flair. His life is spared. And so, see? That's what I'm talking about right there. You hate that thing because you have to actually kill all the other guys' gladiators to put him out of business, and that's how you advance to the next map. So sometimes it can be frustrating when they've got like one fighter left, but he's got like 100% flair, and you're just like, why won't you die? You can negate that if you're having problems with it by coming here. And if you look in his expertise menu, there's a thing called Killer Instinct. It gives you a chance with every blow, or I'm sorry, with every death blow. So the final hit, this right here is your chance of killing them with the final hit. You can raise this up to 50%, and then it doesn't matter what the crowd says because it means you killed them in combat, and the crowd doesn't get to vote on it. As of right now, I think it assumes that he's got arm lacerations, and he's got a dislocated knee. Wow, he fought that guy with a busted knee? I mean, we're going to have to get rid of him. So you've got two options when you get rid of him. This guy is too expensive to keep paying his salary when he's going to be out for almost a half a month. It's just not something I think we can reasonably do. You have two options. You can either have him executed or you can free him because he's technically like an indentured slave. If you murder him and have him executed, you get his savings. And so it's a good thing to do if you have a fighter who's like level 23 and he's injured for like 35 days and he's drawing like a salary of like 1,000 denarii a day and he's super expensive and he's got like 400,000 denarii saved up in his purse. Just kill him. It'll lower the morale of everybody else in your stable, but you just made so much money that who cares? You'll be able to buy new fighters. If we were in a situation like we are right now, my suggestion would be just to free him. At this point, though, we've got Fimbria. We've got... that's a little bit weak. Betting pool is a little bit weak right now. I'm going to take Fimbria. I'm going to leave him in. I wish there was a stat that you could stack or like a stat point you could take that would like cut his salary in half while he's wounded. Because technically he's not working right now. Like he's not helping us out at all. And yet he's still drawing a salary, which is kind of a weird thing. But we spent 1,500 denarii a day. That means we might be able to stick this one out. He's still fatigued for 6 more days. So let's go ahead and bypass some. Fimbria's here. What kind of weapon does Fimbria like? Fimbria likes the Asta. I think we've got the Hasta, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, it's so expensive. I might wait for more weapons to come in 2 days, because I'm not down with paying that much money for the Astas. The Hastas, or whatever you want to call them. Owlus should be back up and running pretty soon. I'm not going to engage him in that massive battle. That's too risky. He's more than likely definitely going to die if I put him in the massive fight. Instead, an average fight might still be too high for his capabilities. We get new fighters in 2 days. We've got Aquila, but he's 44 years old. Probably wouldn't take him. He's got very, very poor health. It's going to make him difficult to count on. So we've got Owlus. Let's go ahead and sign up for this fight right here. We're going to stay with Quadratus, the easy peasy guy. Let's put in Owlus. It's 1-2 is the bets against him on Halva. The purse is so large, though. It looks like we're getting paid almost 40,000 for a win here. You don't collect any money for fighting and losing, which is actually historically inaccurate as well. Typically, the troops were paid beforehand, and then they would just come and they would fight for the entertainment. Additionally, they didn't fight to the death very often. That was actually for really special occasions. Gladiators, on the whole, tended to fight to first blood because it was expensive to raise and train a gladiator. It was a huge cash investment for whoever owned them. And so, killing off gladiators is bad for business. It's real bad for business. So usually they fought to the first blood, and history and all kinds of other things suggest that there was kind of a camaraderie in between gladiators. They saw each other as like a social class that they were a part of, an in-group essentially, is what I'm trying to get at right now. We'll go, it's 1-2. We stand a chance to make some decent money here, so why not? It's the end of the episode anyways. Oh, he's gonna whoop our ass. We're done for. Yep. And so there it is, an epic and evenly matched battle. We have a winner, and he only got fatigued from it, so our losing fighter was brutally killed in combat, and I spent a bunch of money on stupid shit. So that's unfortunate. I was hoping we'd come out on top with that bet, but since you can't see who you're fighting before you place your bets, it's weird that everybody else can see the fighters before they place their bets so as to set, like, the odds. However, so as to set the spread anyways, it's weird that you can't do the same thing that logically the audience seems to be able to do. And so I think that they should change it so you could see the person you're fighting before you place your bets, because I wouldn't have bet it at all had I seen the matchup, basically. I would have been like, my guy's going to die. He's got no chance. No chance in hell. There's the music. It finally decided to turn on. Got a massive fight right there. That's why I would say you should stick to the weak fights for right now. You're probably not going to pull out real well on the stronger, the average fights. Not unless you've got a character who's like otherwise. We've got somebody, a staff name. Okay, so our staff levels up. All these guys, you get to allocate stats to them every now and again when they level. I would say to increase his network. It's just nice to have a lot of options when you're trying to hire new people in the beginning of the game. Evaluation's good, but network can be really important too. I'll probably raise this towards sickness to make sure that our guys don't get sick quite as often. Keep buffing our weapons because it looks like, yep, Fimbria has caught a flu or something like that. Sickness happens way too frequently in this game. I think it's related to like how upgraded your stable is too, though. So if you're living in squalor, chances are they get sick more often. I've noticed that they don't get sick hardly at all later on towards the end of the game when I've got like hundreds and hundreds and thousands of denarii. This right here is more than likely a game that I would re-roll because we got too many high-level fights at the beginning. I actually think that for the first month, they should not give you any strong or massive fights, just because you're not going to fight them anyways. You're going to outright lose, hands down. It should only be low and mild fights so that you can get started, and maybe a couple averages sprinkled in there, but the strongs and the massives eat up spots, and then you can't fight in them, so they're just kind of on the map looking, or they're on the calendar looking pretty. So what indeed do I think about Age of Gladiators? Let's get to kind of the nuts and bolts here. I think that everything that's implemented in Age of Gladiators is enjoyable, but I think I need to express my point a little bit further. The game has like enough content to get you hooked, but not quite enough to keep you, and so the game is a lightweight sim, and in my opinion, you could probably play it in short bursts the best way. I could see the game actually doing really well on a mobile platform because it strikes me as kind of like one of those cell phone games that you can just fiddle around with whenever you want. But on the PC, there's a couple of little things that I think need to be addressed, namely, there's no support for full screen HD. The game runs 1360 by 768 in a window, and that's it. If you put it in full screen, it just letterboxes the same size window. So if you've got a large screen, this game may be a little bit small for you. You can run it if you want in a window and force the full screen, but I don't know. It's not something that I really view as acceptable, the letterboxing and all that kind of stuff. I'm a full screen buff, and I usually always want full screen when I play a game. Since my screens are kind of large, I don't want to play on a tiny window. And least of all, do I want to play with letterboxing. I really don't like that. The combat is my second point. It's tricky because I don't think the fights are the point of the game. However, the management portion is dry enough so as to make you look forward to the fights to spice things up a little bit. But when you get there, you get what is essentially like an auto battle with no fluff. It's all crunch. I don't hate it, but it's underwhelming by comparison to the rest of the game, which is pretty tastefully designed for a management menu game. And then finally, the back end of the game can get kind of grindy, like areas 3 and 4. It's just fights every single day, auto-resolve with nothing really to do with your money. Like, you just have piles and piles of cash, and there's nothing to spend it on, and that's only like halfway through the game. And so anyways, I think the back end of the game needs some kind of, I don't know, I think the game in general needs a few more things to get you hooked. And I definitely think it's pretty safe to say that by the time you've gotten midway through the second map, there's nothing else like to surprise you in terms of gameplay. I like the presentation of the game. I think the menus are really well designed. The character portraits look really, really nice, and I like the overall flow of the title. Early game randomness can be a little bit of a pain, but that's part of playing a game which incorporates permadeath for both you as a manager and your fighters. Customization is another point that I think they do okay, although there are definitely right choices and wrong choices among the stats. Some aren't worthwhile at all. For example, strength, which is kind of a pointless stat, and I think adding a chance to like the lesser stats like stamina and strength might make it a little bit better. So for example, maybe adding a chance to break a parry from reaction checks to strength might make it a little bit more useful, or making it so that stamina maybe gets rid of a little bit of damage or makes, I don't know, something work a little bit better. Either that or toning down the weaponry damage might make strength a little bit more vital. I liked leveling my characters. My Dominus and my fighters both get perks, and it's a lot of fun, and it gives you quite a few options, but once again, there are right and wrong ways to build your gladiators, and I've made note of the fact that most of my successful fighters tended to follow a template. Like, the ones that won and just like dominated were always high dex, high HP, and then from there you just spam dodging skills as much as you can, and strength and stamina I more or less just ignore because strength and stamina characters don't make it. I also think the game could use a little bit more fluff. Like I said earlier, it would have been nice to see the gladiators interact with one another, have like personalities, have little conversations, Mountain Blade style, so that you got kind of used. Talk to you about their past every now and again in the little mails that they send you. I think that right now the game is a little bit robotic in the sense that like there's a lot of mechanics and things there, but there's nothing to really make it all feel human. And that's what you have to remember about that, is the gladiators were human beings. They had thoughts, they had feelings, they had dreams, they had things they wanted to go for. They're just like the rest of us, just in a very violent profession. And so all in all, I think it was a simple game, and I think it would benefit from some fleshing out. There's enough incorporated into the title to get you hooked, but not enough to keep you, which is what I said long term. The game is currently priced at around $10, and for what you're getting, I think that's a little high. I got about 8 hours out of it before I felt like I was basically just doing the same repetitive actions over and over again. I was hoping for like $5.99, but I don't know what the development costs of the game were or what that facilitated. I do think that my love of Gladiator stuff is probably overriding my better judgment here, but I liked the game. Age of Gladiators, you can check it out on Steam. I got a link for you down below. I think I've expressed just about all I wanted to express about this one. This series is called Weekly Indie Newcomer. It's the series that I do on a weekend where we talk about an indie game that I've been playing a lot over the course of the last week. This week was Age of Gladiators. Once again, you want to get the game, it's down below. I got a Steam link for you. If you didn't like the game, well, I'll have another indie game up for you, piping hot and fresh, next Saturday. Bye, everybody.